Hi, this is Choice from Nagrand, and I'm going to be giving you a brief overview of the Zul'Aman instance, which came out in the 4.0 build today. A lot of changes will still be made to it over the coming weeks and whatnot, but this is a vague sort of overview of all the bosses currently. It's running at ×2 speed with no trash, because it took me 3 hours to clear this with this group. But anyway, the changes to the bear boss. He still uses the charge function, except now it's called Surge, and he'll surge at an individual player which is furthest away from him. That player will be afflicted by a debuff that is called Surge, and they'll take 200% extra damage for 20 seconds. The idea behind this is that you want to have players rotating who's furthest away to reduce the damage and not get one shot. But this doesn't actually translate to be the case with this particular kill, because he just had a single mage soak every single one, and he took barely any damage. So that may well get fixed. One way to make it start one-shotting is to increase the base damage of the surge by probably about 5,000, because when you take into account the multiplier of 200, it ends up being 90k damage for mitigation. So that's one way of fixing that. Now this boss is fairly bugged right now, and the script did take advantage of that. The kidnappers, which you'll see soon, here we go, they pick up players, but the thing is, the players that are picked up by them can just hit the leave vehicle option, and yeah, they get thrown off. So, despite that, it's still a fairly challenging boss. Like, if you look at the health bars and whatnot, people are going up and down, and the boss is destroying us. People don't stack for the storm, but I don't think that's as vital as it used to be, because you got less players to deal with. Yeah, despite the fact that we're blatantly exploiting this, we still end up getting a fairly rough kill. He translates all of his abilities, such as the lightning discharge and whatnot. All that still applies. I'm not sure how the discharge works with this 5-man version, but yeah, most of our players did end up getting it at some point or another. And as you can see there, I've got 2 stacks currently. So yeah, fairly rough kill, and those kidnappers cannot be meleeed. Well, they can be meleeed if you jump, but they can't be conveniently meleeed. You want to have range deal with them if that's possible. Now, this boss is very similar to the original encounter, the only difference being that he flame breaths now in trails in random directions, and rather than each side hatching a full set, now they hatch in sets of 2. So it now takes, you've now got 4 batches to work with, rather than just 2. They all release at the same time when he hits his transition phase as normal. But yeah, it becomes much more manageable with that lesser number. But really, tanking all of them at once isn't that difficult. If you have a look here, I tank, I think, 3 sets all at the same time, and it does very little damage. It might just be 2 sets, I honestly can't remember, this was hours ago. But yeah, the damage is fairly basic. There's still the stacking flame dart, which stacks, obviously. But it doesn't seem to be as brutal as it used to be, because I can still tank the boss and those ads, which, that's par for the course, considering that it's a 1-tank encounter, being a 5-man. So, yeah, I think the Frenzy is no longer time-based. I think the original one was time-based. I may be wrong on that. But, yeah, you see in Frenzy now at about 15% now, rather than whatever it used to be. I honestly can't remember. Probably should have read up on this before I queued for it. Yeah, fairly basic fight, really. I think they may end up increasing the damage of the flame trail. I don't think the whelps themselves can be increased much by damage in terms of their damage output, because it's already pretty high as it is, and that's not really what makes the encounter difficult. So yeah, that fight's alright. It's not particularly that easy. This fight definitely is a step up here. Hell's Ray. Pretty much, he drops these water totems, but they only heal him when he's inside the radius, so it is possible to start off in a corner and move him around, and I believe that's how the achievement's actually done. So you just move him around, but seeing as we've got such little health, and this was actually our first attempt, we just had them killed off. Smart thing to do is not what I do, and yeah, at one point try and run from one side of the totem to another, walking the boss straight through it. It does tick periodically, so it is possible to get him out of there without him getting healed. But the way the spirit differs is it no longer is tankable. It picks a random player and fixates on them. So you'll see here I try and taunt it and pick it up and build threat in it, nothing really works. You do get an indication with that orange arrow as to who's being targeted, so it's not exactly hard. The damage, it seemed alright, our healer was able to deal with it. So, yeah, you don't see the corrupted totems in this joint phase until the very last phase, which I believe is in line with the original encounter. like I said, it's been a long time, so I can't really remember a lot of these mechanics. So yeah, you know, just kind of away from that water totem if that's what you're into. If you want to get that achievement, start off in a corner, work your way around. Ignore the links completely in terms of DPS because yeah, it still works the way it normally does. It transitions, which on the first one to hit level, I think it's 20%, is it? Maybe it's less now. I don't have percentages running for the PTR. So yeah, this fight is definitely a bit more difficult than the other ones, purely because it's got more mechanics which it's adopting from the new style. Like if you look at it, a lot of these encounters have the same base strategy, but they've sort of shoehorned in a little extra bit, which, you know, that's not anything to frown at, I guess. It's definitely not as good as the first boss in ZG. I say the first boss because that's the only one I've actually seen. But regardless, that's, you know, definitely a step up. Now, this boss, I'd say it's actually, in terms of strategy, easier than the one we just completed, but it is still quite challenging. So I'm not sure if these ads can be CC'd. I know they can be stunned and interrupted, but I did mark for one of these to be interrupted earlier on, and the mage didn't attempt it early enough to CCing the previous ones. But I assume they can be CC'd because the original ones were. So it still works off whichever player re-siphons. Now the Death Knight one, which is the new one, he drops Death and Decays, and from a player, Bloodworms will spawn. And he gets channeled this time, so you'll see what happens. And they'll slowly walk towards the boss, and you need to kill them off. I'm not sure what happens when they do get to him. I assume it heals him, but I'm not sure. I didn't see any buff supply when he got them during a previous attempt. Big one here is interrupts, obviously. We miss an interrupt towards the back end, and it pretty much, you know, adds 30 seconds to the fight. The heals are still very unforgiving, and the Consecrate still ticks for a fuck ton. But overall, this phase is fairly easy. They've removed the soft enrage, and I imagine that's because the soft enrage would be sort of... like, it wouldn't complement him very much because you'd have only 5 players for it to stack off, and it would hurt you a lot more because you've got, you know, the ratio of DPS you'd lose from 5 people versus 10 people losing 1% damage is a lot higher. So, yeah. So with Warrior here, gains Heroic Leap. I'm not sure if any other bosses have new mechanics, because those are the only ones we actually had in the group. And none of this is itemized yet, by the way. It's all level 70 stuff we're getting. So, yeah. Now this last one, he clearly isn't modelled yet, so yeah, don't bitch and moan about his model. This fight is, it's sort of like Zul'Aman. It takes the same mechanics of picking one of the aspects, and they still follow the same basic mechanics, but there's a few key differences, especially with the Link's boss, which made me want to kill myself. Although I didn't have to, because it pretty much did the job for me. But you'll see that. So yeah, first thing you'll notice, still ads. They don't die as quickly as they used to, because obviously, yeah, it's got less players to AoE them. But there's still not really much of a threat at all. Now the Whirlwind doesn't hit very hard at all. You'll see our healer stands in for every single Whirlwind, which didn't turn out to be an issue. It is for about 20k, I believe, something around that, maybe a bit more. So you'll see the health bars here during Whirlwind, and, you know, Scratch. There's only 3 transitions, I believe, during this one. Bear wasn't used in either of our attempts, so I'm not sure if that's intended or if that's just luck. So when you get links, you'll get 2 ads that spawn, and you'll see here soon he'll apply a debuff, and I believe it's called Savage or something similar to that. Pretty much, I'm unable to move, and I take an additional 1500 damage every stack, and it's devastating. If you don't have some form of cooldown or something, it annihilates you. I did notice every time I survived by the skin of my teeth. I'm not sure if it's got something to do with I don't know, the boss stopping or whatever, but yeah, it pretty much annihilates me. You can actually bubble off the stack, so a good idea is to bubble it off at about 6 or 8 stacks. Well, probably not 8, but around the midway point, so you know the highest amount of damage doesn't actually translate. And I've actually done that there. Now, I believe these ads are meant to die before now, but they're still up, so you sort of need to deal with it. This guy, he still does the little spinny thing, but the things that spawn from the air actually remain there. I'm not sure if they just target the tank or if it's random, but it did seem to follow me around, so, you know, assuming that it is targeted on the tank, I'd recommend that you start off in a corner as I did and move around. So, backpedaling for this probably isn't the smartest idea, but, you know, whatever. The damage during this phase is actually quite high. If you look here, people start dying and such. He still drops the flame trail, so it might be better to sort of keep him towards the middle. But looking at these flame trails, or these flame spitty things, and how they maintain their spot, it's probably not very ergonomic to be holding him in the center. So you'll see here we do have a few deaths, but all in all the kill was, you know, acceptable. It took us a lot less attempts to kill this than it did for us to kill Hex Lord. So, you know, maybe this fight's easier, maybe it's underturned. You know, there's still a lot that needs to be done with this instance, and I feel that it's not really going to compare well to some of the more advanced instances in terms of strategies. If you compare those bosses to ones that say, I don't know, Grim Batal, it doesn't quite compare, just because, you know, a lot more simple encounters. The encounters in Zul'Aman for its time were still fairly unique and complex in comparison to other fights. But yeah, I personally think it's alright. I think it takes a bit long. Like, we spent 3 hours in here, so maybe they can fix that. I don't know how you would do that though. Like, and a lot of time that we spent in there was due to the fact that there's a combat bug currently with the third last boss where you can't actually remount because you stay in combat. So it obviously added a lot of time to our runbacks and whatnot. So yeah, it's still a work in progress. I'd say overall it's satisfactory. I enjoyed it. I don't know how it'll last in terms of, you know, lasting appeal if people still want to run this after 2 months or whatever. But yeah, you know, I enjoyed it. It's a good nostalgia trip.